Hey everybody, it's Jenna. I'm reporting to you live from the Friday of San Diego Comic-Con, which has already inspired about half a dozen different videos that I am very excited to make. But one thing did come out today that I promised I would drop everything and make a video about as soon as humanly possible, and not even Comic-Con can stop me. James Gunn has officially released high-quality photos of the Hall of Justice mural, which is briefly seen in the background of one scene in Superman, and which chronicles the history of metahumans in the DCU. After weeks of speculating and multiple repeat viewings trying to figure out who these characters were, I am so glad that we finally have an answer, especially because there are some faces and names on here that I was not expecting at all. So let's dive in.
The character who I thought was Amethyst, in my defense, all I saw in theaters were her purple feet, is Sister Symmetry, a mantle created by James Tynion IV and Alvaro Martinez Bueno in 2019's Justice League Dark number 8. The mantle is associated with the Cloak of Kyra, which contains the ancient massive power and often the consciousness of one of the female members of the magical Lords of Order. The most famous wearer of the cloak is Madame Xanadu, who has her own incredibly complex history as a magic user in the DCU and came close to getting her own solo project in the previous regime. I wouldn't be surprised if this is Madame Xanadu or another unnamed woman who had the mantle much earlier. But either way, I love that she not only exists, but is at the point of being publicly known in this universe. Next is Silent Knight, created by Robert Kanigher and Irv Novick in 1955's The Brave and the Bold number 1. A man from the 6th century named Brian Kent, he is motivated by the death of his father to become an expert knight and proto-vigilante, who vanquishes his foes often without uttering a word. In addition to crossing over with King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, he has later been revealed to have connections to heroes in the present day. He is now canonically regarded to be a past incarnation of Carter Hall's Hawkman, as well as an ancestor to Superman's adoptive father, Jonathan Kent. Even if we don't confirm either of those connections in the DCU, I love them both. Next is Exoristos, created by Paul Cornell and Diogenes Nevis in 2011's Demon Knights number 1, as an exiled member of the Amazons and a member of the mystical New 52 team, the Demon Knights. Armed with her hammer, she becomes a sort of reluctant folk hero of any town that she enters, even playing a part in the American Revolution. She eventually earns her status back in Themyscira, and her sword is used centuries later by none other than Wonder Woman. I love that she is baked into the history of the DCU, both given the fact that the Amazons already have a public reputation, and because it feels like offering a new take on Diana and Asteria's journeys in the previous regime. Next is Black Pirate, created by Sheldon Moldoff in 1940's Action Comics number 23, a 16th century adventurer and privateer known as John Valor. He has become a sort of cornerstone of DC's pirate mythos. In addition to time traveling to the 38th century and passing his mantle on to his son and grandson, his story took a turn for the worse when he was framed for his son's murder and hanged in what would later become Opal City. His ghost then factored into James Robinson's legendary Starman run. Next is Miss Liberty, created by Ed Herron and Fred Ray in 1962's Tomahawk number 81. An American revolutionary named Bess Lynn, she suited up as a vigilante before also being thrown into the 38th century. She is regarded to be the ancestor of another character on this mural, Liberty Bell. This is where things get particularly interesting. The speedster character Max Mercury is on the mural twice, first in his Whip Whirlwind persona and later in his Max Mercury costume. Originally created by Jack Cole and Chuck Mazzulian in 1940's National Comics number 5 under the name Quicksilver, which they later could not use, Max's history, which was largely expanded on by Mark Waid in the 1990s, is enough to fill its own video. But essentially, he travels in time much more successfully than Barry Allen. Whip Whirlwind was a codename that he gave himself while stuck in the 1890s before becoming Max Mercury in the 20th century. I do like the choice to have him literally running across the mural in two different eras, and I am curious if the public even knows that Max is both of these speedsters or thinks that they're two separate guys. Next is Black Bison, created by Jerry Conway and Pat Broderick in 1982's Fury of Firestorm number 1. Armed with a talisman and a magical control of the elements, he is not only a recurring antagonist of Firestorms, but part of the ensemble in stories like Forever Evil and Doomsday Clock. Next is the Lazarus Lane incarnation of El Diablo, created by Robert Kanigher and Tony DeZunia in 1970's All-Star Western number 2. An ordinary bank clerk who survives a robbery attempt, he nearly dies, gets struck by lightning, and is reanimated into an avatar of the spirit of vengeance by his friend-turned-enemy Wise Owl. Yes, the El Diablo mantle is kinda similar to Marvel's Ghost Rider, and I like that we're baking it in 4 centuries. This is another interesting one. I think this character might be Hugo Danner, who has technically made his way into both the DC and Marvel universes, but did not originate there. He was actually created by Philip Wiley for the 1930s pulp serial Gladiator, which is regarded to be one of the precursors for the modern superhero myth and may or may not have inspired Spider-Man, Superman, and more. Once Danner entered the DCU in 1988's Young All-Star series, his lore was then expanded. He was not only one of the earliest metahumans of the 20th century, but he was also the father of the Superman-esque hero Iron Monroe. In addition to hiding out on Dinosaur Island, a location that James has already teased for the DCU, so don't even get me started on that connection, and advising his son, Danner also got his own solo book in Wildstorm's Legend, which modernized the original events of the Gladiator novel. The fact that we can even have a character like that on the mural, especially given his own complex publishing history, endlessly delights me. Ghost of Flanders.
Everyone else loves Ned Flanders.
Life was created by Tony Blum and George E. Brenner in 1941's hit comics number 18. While he does not have superpowers, his gimmick and his costume and his gumption made him stick out in that era. Next is the Wesley Dodds incarnation of Sandman, created by Gardner Fox and Burt Kreisman in 1939's New York World's Fair Comics number 1. He is arguably one of the most famous heroes on this mural, using a gun filled with sleeping gas to fight crime and eventually earning a spot on the Golden Age JSA. In addition to appearing in a number of JSA and other ensemble books, he has had multiple great solo titles, including the Sandman Mystery Theater in the 1990s, as well as the 2023 series Wesley Dodds The Sandman. He is one of those JSA members who can totally function on his own, whether or not the team already has a baked-in history in this DCU, so his appearance here is really exciting to me. Next is Amazing Man, created by Roy Thomas and Jerry Ordway in 1983's All-Star Squadron number 23. An homage, both in his mantle and civilian name, to Bill Everett's Golden Age character Amazing Man, he is best known as the 1930s Olympian-turned-henchman Will Everett, who gets stuck in a lab accident that gives him the ability to mimic anything that he touches. Known as one of the first black superheroes in the chronology of the DCU, his mantle has been passed along to a number of characters since then. Finally, the last character on the first half of the mural is Giovanni Zatara, created by Fred Gardner all the way back in a little issue called Action Comics number 1. A sorcerer who moonlights as a stage magician, he is known both as his own hero, a mentor to Batman and Constantine, and as a father to my girl Zatanna. As someone who has wanted a Zatanna solo project for literal years at this point, and is fine with fudging Giovanni's age to get there, I like knowing that he was at least around during World War II. The second half of the mural begins with Liberty Bell, who was created by Don Cameron and Chuck Winter in 1942's Boy Commandos number 1. Another World War II era Olympian who operated as a radio personality, a spy, a vigilante, and an all-star squadron member, with the help of superpowers that she is believed to have gotten from the literal ringing of the Liberty Bell. She is part of a sort of superhero dynasty, as both a descendant of Miss Liberty and the mother of Jesse Quick. Next is Bullet Man and Bullet Girl, who were created by Jeff Parker and John Small in 1940's Nickel Comics number 1. The code names for World War II era husband and wife duo Jim Barr and Susan Kent. They fight crime with the help of superpowered chemicals and bullet-shaped gravity-defying helmets. Their comics tenure is interesting, as they were originally created for Fawcett Comics and folded into DC, but their Golden Age issues technically also exist in the public domain. There's also the teacher and student duo of TNT and Dan the Dynamite, created by Mort Weisinger in Star Spangled Comics number 7. Having superpowers tied to the opposite sides of the atomic spectrum, they originally thrived in the Golden Age before the mantle was revamped in both the All-Star Squadron and the Seven Soldiers. Next is a character I am very excited about, Phantom Lady, created by the Eisner and Iger studio, as well as Arthur F. Petty in 1941's Police Comics number 1. The mantle was originally worn by Sandra Knight, a senator's daughter who can manipulate blacklight and uses it to moonlight as a crime fighter. She quickly earned her own lore and rogues gallery in the Golden Age and has a very unique tie to the anti-comics drama of the 1950s due to the provocative, for the time, ways that she was drawn. Eventually, she ended up under the DC umbrella and was retconned into being a member of the Freedom Fighters. She was also one of the biggest sources of inspiration for Watchmen's Silk Spectre. I love her to death, and I love knowing that she already exists in this universe. Next is one of the Atomic Knights, created by John Broome and Murphy Anderson in 1960's Strange Adventures number 117. They're sort of a modernized take on the Knights of the Round Table, fighting in a possible post-apocalyptic future in the 1980s. The most well-known of the Atomic Knights is Gardner Grail, an Army sergeant turned Star Labs employee who builds the Atomic Knight armor in the present day and later becomes a member of the Outsiders. Next is Freedom Beast, created by Grant Morrison in 1989's Animal Man number 13. An anti-apartheid activist and successor of the superhero Bwana Beast, he gains his superpowers from a magical elixir, as well as a helmet that lets him communicate with the animal world. My man, Wildcat, created by Bill Finger and Erwin Hasen in 1942's Sensation Comics number 1. Also known as Boxer Ted Grant, his 9 lives, cat-themed costume, and a slew of martial arts skills made him a prominent and beloved member of the JSA. He's also beloved by me for his role in the lives of both Black Canaries, including being a mentor and surrogate uncle to the younger Dinah Laurel Lance. Go watch his Justice League Unlimited episode if you haven't already and want a quick intro into him. I could talk about him for literal hours, but I love that he's here and was seemingly in his prime in the 80s, which would create a lot of storytelling potential in the present day. Next is Vibe, created by Jerry Conway and Chuck Patton in 1984's Justice League of America Annual number 2. Introduced as one of the many characters in the Justice League Detroit roster, he was also a take on the then growing art of breakdancing, and armed with the ability to create extremely powerful shockwaves. Yes, he is Cisco Ramon from the Flash TV show, but I just love getting to fully see his comic-accurate costume here. Next, we have Gunfire, created by Len Wein and Steve Irwin in 1993's Deathstroke Annual number 3. A businessman with the ability to cause anything to explode like a gun, he joined the extremely 90s group The Blood Pack and has subsequently returned here and there in event series. And finally, I'm not ruling out the possibility that this is just Max Lord himself, especially with the Lord Tech building in the background, but I'm going to maintain my theory that it's Martin Stein. Created by Jerry Conway and Al Milton important in 1973's Firestorm and the Nuclear Man #1, he is one of the most well-known halves of Firestorm, bonding with Ronnie Raymond to become the nuclear-powered superhero. Victor Garber did a fantastic job with Stein in the Arrowverse, but I have always felt that there is so much potential for him as a scientist in the larger DCU, so I'm going to hold out hope here.
I could spend another hour just talking about these characters and the potential that they might have in the DCU, especially after James did say that some of them might appear in projects that are in development. I am so happy that they even exist. I will continue to sing the praises of how fleshed out and wonderful and lived in this universe is, and I think this mural proves that in its own unique way. Who's your favorite character on the mural? Are there any you're really surprised by? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends if you haven't already done so. Merch is available at the link in the description. As always, you can find me on social media at HeyIt'sJenna, where you can see my many Comic-Con updates. Thank you all so much for watching and supporting me and supporting this channel, and as always, go read some comics.